Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 p.m. Cairo local time. This is Shuru Bakir, and I'll accompany you through the latest development in the region and internationally, starting off with the headlines, followed with the details. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi receives U.S. President's senior advisor for Arab, Middle Eastern, and African Affairs, Mossad Boulos. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli follows up development work in Mbaba and Aziz Izzat neighborhoods. Hospitals and medics in the Gaza Strip say Israeli strikes across the Palestinian enclave kill at least 66 people overnight. Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received today U.S. President Senior Advisor for Arab, Middle Eastern, and African Affairs, Mossad Boulos, in the presence of Minister of Foreign, Immigration, and Expatriates Affairs, Badr Abdelati, and Head of General Intelligence, Hassan Rashid. Presidential spokesman said that Boulos conveyed the greetings of U.S. President Donald Trump to President el-Sisi, which the President el-Sisi appreciated. President el-Sisi affirmed that the depth of the strategic relations between Egypt and the U.S. and Egypt's keenness to strengthen them. President el-Sisi stressed the importance of joint work to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and allow humanitarian aid to enter the Strip. The president hailed the role of U.S., Qatar in mediation to contain the crisis. For his part, Boulos affirmed U.S. keenness to resume joint efforts with Egypt to restore regional peace and stability in the region. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli stressed the importance of establishing comprehensive and integrated vision for the development of unplanned areas, raising their efficiency, improving service and operation of public parks as important axis within the framework of achieving the development aims of the state. This came during a meeting held by Madbouli to follow up on development work in Mbaba and Aziz Izzat neighborhoods. The meeting was attended by Minister of Housing Sharif al-Shirbini, Giza's Governor Adel Nagar, Chairman of the Urban Development Fund Khalid Sadiq, in addition to a number of concerned officials. The Minister of Housing reviewed the development of projects aimed at improving the efficiency of 117 buildings in the project, and for his part, the Chairman of Urban Development Fund reviewed the development of El Kitkat area in Mbaba and the area surrounded by Aziz Izzat buildings. He said that El Kitkat area used to be an unplanned area, including government housing, in addition to some educational and industrial services. Hospital and medics in Gaza Strip say Israeli strikes across the Palestinian enclave killed at least 66 people overnight and into Sunday. The hospitals and medics said women and children were among the dead. The bloodshed came as Israel launches an escalation of its war in Gaza, what it says it meant to ramp up pressure on Hamas to agree to a temporary ceasefire. Scores of Israeli settlers stormed into the Aqsa Mosque compound under the heavy occupation police protection. They broke into the compound from the Magharba gate in groups, conducting provocative tours and Talmudic rituals. This came as settlers burned vast swaths in the city of Duma south of Nablus in the West Bank. The Israeli occupation military said on Sunday that it had intercepted a missile fired from Yemen, where the Houthis have been launching strikes on Israel during its genocide war in Gaza. The Israeli occupation army said in a Telegram post that following that sensors that sounded in several areas in Israel, a missile that was launched from Yemen was intercepted. The Houthis have fired missiles and drones at Israelis since the Israeli genocide war in Gaza broke into October 2023. Earlier, Israel bombed the Red Sea ports of Hodeidah and Salif following 3 missiles attack in as many days. It also threatened to target the Houthis' leadership if the attacks continued. Syria's defense minister gave holdout armed group a 10-day deadline to join the war-torn country's forces in the late push to unify. Minister Morhaf Abu Qasra said all major armed factions had now been integrated into the Defense Ministry after the new authorities being working to bring them together, but he urged the remaining smaller groups to also join ranks. The move was required to complete the unification and organization efforts, and any delay will necessitate taking the appropriate measures according to the law. Libya's UN-packed premier called on armed groups to align themselves with state institutions after days of deadly clashes in Tripoli and protests demanding his resignation. Days of clashes in the capital have pitted an armed group aligned with the Tripoli-based government against groups it has been seeking to dismantle. U.S. Donald Trump said he would speak by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the conflict in Ukraine. For its part, the Kremlin said a meeting between Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Putin would be possible only after both sides reach an agreement. The details follow.
A day after the first direct talks between Russia and Ukraine in more than 3 years, U.S. President Donald Trump said that he would speak by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the conflict in Ukraine. Trump, who has been pressing Russia to agree a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, added that he would speak with Putin by phone on Monday. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told the state-tasked news agency that the call was being prepared. Earlier, the Kremlin said a meeting between Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky would be possible only after both sides reach an agreement. That came a day after direct talks between the two countries led to an agreement for another exchange of prisoners. Zelensky had repeated his call for fresh sanctions against Moscow. The first direct Ukraine-Russia talk since the spring of 2022, shortly after Moscow's military operation that February, led to an agreement to exchange 1,000 prisoners each. Ukraine's top negotiator, Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, said the next step would be a meeting between Zelensky and Putin.
Ukraine said today that Russia had launched a record number of drones at the country overnight, targeting various regions, injuring at least 22 people on lockers, enjoying the bomb spring evening, watched in horror as the ship it sails, furled and festive lights dropped into rigging, tried to pass beneath the bridge, which sheared off the masts and sent them crashing into the East River. The Mexican Navy said in a statement that 22 people on board the training ship were injured, 3 of them critically. Presidential candidates in Romania are casting ballots Sunday in a tense presidential runoff between a hard-right nationalist and a pro-Western centrist in a high-stakes election return that could determine the geopolitical directions of the European Union and NATO member country. Sunday's race between foreigner George Simon, the 38-year-old leader of the hard-right Alliance for the Unity of Romanians, and Ploiești Mayor Nicu Surt, then comes month after the cancellation of the previous election plunged into Romania with the worst political crisis in decades. If George Simon's win, the return held after last year's vote was annulled over allegation of elections interference, he would become the key NATO country's first far-right president that would thrust Romania into a growing group of EU members with nationalist leaders critical of Brussels and keen to cut the military aid to Ukraine. Poland voted today in a tight presidential election that will be decisive for the future of the country's pro-EU government. Centrist Marcel Mayer is expected to win 30% of the vote, according to the opinion polls, ahead of nationalist historian Karol Nawacki on 25%. Voting ends at 9 p.m. when exit polls are expected. The final official results of the contest, in which 13 candidates are running, are expected on Monday. Voters in Portugal returned to the polls today for the third general election in 3 years as the country's increasingly fragmented political landscape defies efforts to unite behind policies on pressing national issues such as immigration, housing, and the cost of living. Hopes that the ballot might end the worst spell of political instability in decades for a European Union country of 10.6 million people could be dashed. Moving to the economy, the Suez Canal Economic Zone and a Chinese garment company signed an agreement to invest $50 million to establish a ready-made garment factory at the Kantara, which industrial zone. The new factory will be established over 27,000 square meters and is expected to create nearly 2,000 direct jobs opportunities, according to the statement by the economic zone. The project aims to produce over 12 million ready-made garments annually, and factory's entire production will be exported. Moving to the sports, Egyptian champion Nour Shirbini clinched the World Squash Championship title hosted by Chicago, the United States, after beating her compatriot Hania El Hamami, the world number 3-3-1 in the final match. World number 2 Nour Shirbini secured her 8th World Championship title, equaling the all-time record of Malaysian legend Nicole David, who also got 8 champions before her retirement. Al-Ahli secured a crucial win in the 7th round of the Egyptian Premier League playoff phase, beating the National Bank of Egypt 2-1 league. League leaders Al-Ahli scored in the 20th minute of the first half through Imam Ashur, and in the 6th minute of the extra time, Wissam Abu Ali doubled the scoring to extend his team's winning streaks to 5 consecutive matches. With the latest win, Al-Ahli cemented their position on the top of the league table with 55 points, while the National Bank of Egypt have 37 points. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we came to the end of this news edition. Thank you for watching. Best regards from me, Shuru Bakir.